Well, you wouldn't be lying. You're not on film. No, that's not film. That's
Yes,
passe. Film is gone.
that's true. That's true.
Yeah, if you said you're not being recorded,
You're right. So you're not on film. So wherever you want to begin.
in the beginning, there was the word. Stop. In the beginning, I was born very young. Oh boy. I mean, I can get long winded, so I mean,
Be
how
along
do.
with it. It's not supposed to
Nah, this
stress.
is a video.
It's an
You
interview.
don't want the people to go to sleep on it.
We'll cut up short snippets and post the whole thing for those who are of non-jellyfish mind.
Hmm.
How about the Black History Museum for us?
Oh, what they got to do with up here?
Oh, nothing. I just wanted to start somewhere. Usually it's all connected with the stories you tell.
Bismillah. Yeah, watch me die. um, I I'm always watching the news on TV, and one evening I turned the news on, and the reporter reported that um, DeSoto County denies Muslims a place of worship. And my radar just went up. And I didn't even know where DeSoto County was. So I looked it up. I'm trying to think, did they say DeSoto County or I think they actually used the city. The news came on that in Arcadia they denied the Muslims a place of worship. So when I heard that, I never heard of Arcadia. So I was trying to figure out where Arcadia is, and I looked it up. Still, it wasn't telling me anything. So I happened to ask some brothers at Masjid Ibrahim, did they know where Arcadia, Florida? No, did they know of a mosque in Arcadia, Florida? And they told me yes. And they actually told me, where it was. In fact, these were brothers that participate in the Tabligh Jamaat. And, and that was one of their stops that they made. So that's why they knew exactly where it was at. And gave me all the information. And the following Friday, I went there for Jumu'ah. So getting there, and afterwards, I asked them about what I heard on the TV about denying them, and they told me, it was true. And I asked, is it anything I can do to help them out, you know, on this matter? So, of course, they really didn't know me, so it took me about a month, coming to the Jumu'ah services every Friday. Um, and then they start. I knew they asked about me because I told them I was from Fort Myers, and they um, these were brothers from Bangladesh, and they have a large community of Bengalis in Fort Myers. So I'm pretty sure they called down there and asked them and got reference on me, which is alhamdulillah. Um, so about after a month of growing up there, then they start opening up to me more, and in time, next thing I know, they was giving me things and information, different things to do. And at the time, um, Care Florida was working with them. They had hired a attorney for the group here in Arcadia. So I got the information. They told me who, and I called. I can't think of the Muslim sister that was working for CARE. Maja, is that her name?
I need to reference the recordings.
Yeah. I contacted her and told her that I was new and will and trying to get more information about what was going on. Next thing I know, they had me. They had there was another brother, Sadiq, from Port Charlotte, was working with them also, and by me coming up, I think that was taking some of the load off of Sadiq, and he was like turning things over to me to deal with CARE in the situation. By not having all the information, and CARE is handling it, so I didn't do a lot of research in what was going on, and I was just following whatever lead that CARE or whatever CARE instructed me to do. We finally had the first hearing was with the Planning and Zoning Board, and the Planning and Zoning Board with a 3-2 vote, not in favor of supporting the initiative of creating a mosque here.
Was it 3-2 or 4-1?
I don't know. I thought it was 3-2. We can check it out.
Okay.
I know the commissioners' meeting was 4-0 because they had one commissioner missing that night. I'm kind of sure. I'm not 100%, but I'm kind of sure because at first I thought it was 3-2 in favor, and as time went on and I started researching, you know, after the county commissioner rejected it, um, I found that it was 3-2, not in favor. You know, their recommendation to the commissioners wasn't favorable, and part of it had to do that they wanted to, I think, have daycare. They want to be able to slaughter on the property, and we're talking about like a half acre of property. They wanted to slaughter, and they wanted to do something else. So CARE had recommended them to take all that out. You know, no slaughtering, no daycare, and I forgot what the third one is. So they took all that out before they and then submitted it into the county commissioners. When we got to the county commissioner meeting, we end up losing that on a 4-0 vote, that they did not approve us having a place of worship, because they did have a complaint, I think, at least from one of our neighbors. And they, I remember they was talking about it would be too much traffic coming back there, and the kids play in the street, back there. It wasn't until, and then I started doing my research. I got papers from CARE on this, so I was reading that, and going to the planning and zoning and talking to the head of that department, which was very welcoming. He spent time with me and talked to me. And I discovered that they didn't do their due diligence by checking the zoning out first. The zoning was residential, so that's what they was trying to do, change the zoning. And it did have in the zoning special exemption, and one of the special exemption is a place of worship. But what they failed to really understand, and when I sat at the commissioners meeting, they was bringing about employment zone, which at the time I didn't fully understand what they meant by employment zone. And afterward, by sitting with the planning and zoning, his name was Mr. Hans, and he explained what it was. I know from where I come from, Maryland, Baltimore, they did not call it that. They call it empowerment zone. So it was like the same thing in Baltimore as an empowerment zone. So I didn't understand their term, employment zone. So after gathering all these information, and then there was in the applications they had a lot of contradictions in it, where it was the name was this Islamic Islamic Center of Arcadia, Inc. It was also written in the application Islamic Center LLC, and there was some more mistakes made in the application. So it was a lot of things. It was a lot of little mistakes that ended up into big mistakes. Let's see what else. I mentioned about that the special exemption. But see, what killed that special exemption about a place of worship is because the area was rezoned as an employment center. So what that is, they are looking for businesses. And along the highway part of this employment zone, which is 17, they had already changed all that property, which was, residential, agriculture. They changed it all to commercial. Because what they're looking for is businesses set up in these areas. And even though we weren't on 17, we was the next street running parallel to 17. They designated that as an employment center designation, even though it still carried residential. They still looking for commercial to come in there. So the long range plan is really phasing out the residents for commercial. So by them not understanding that, because the special exemption did say you can apply for place of worship, listening to what the commissioner said, they felt that they didn't want to set a precedent of putting a place of worship in a employment zone. Employment zone. So that was the hitch. It would never went through, even though the attorney turned to me after the hearing and told me that if was interested in pursuing the matter, the fee will start at $10,000 to take this battle on. My first reaction was no, and then after, like I said, after reading the paperwork and understanding what how the commissioners was feeling and everything, that I felt that it was a useless to waste money and time trying to change that. Because I do remember them saying that they weren't against, us practicing our religion, but they felt that that wasn't the area to do so, to find somewhere else and come back, to them. All right, so that's how I ended up. I commuted back and forth from Fort Myers to Arcadia every Friday, every once in a while, spending a night, to Saturday, or I don't know if I ever spent a Thursday night for Um, I think I did a Thursday night, so I can already be here for.
Jamaa'ah.
Yeah, but I'm trying to think. I'm not sure. I think it was just um, on on um, Friday night to Saturday. I would stay. I really don't remember because I had to. Because you can't do no. I can't go to the city and county on Saturdays, so I had to, come up,
Mm-hmm.
you know, on a Thursday to do something, and was able to sit with the, yeah. So I had to, because they didn't work on Saturdays and Sundays. Well, anyway, I did that for about a year, and before the year was up, I made up my mind. Um, Talked to my wife and about moving up here and helping, because at the time I was planning to leave Fort Myers because of the some of the trials and tribulations I had, and I think the last thing was Masjid Tawheed. Um, I sat with Imam Abdul Haq. In fact, we had breakfast one day, and I asked him about um, hooking up with them because I knew I couldn't hook up with Masjid Ibrahim. Our outlook is just too different, and not our outlook on Islam. That was no problem. I mean, we in agreement on that. It's just some of the methodology of how they do, how they run things. I wasn't a person that feel the way I was brought into Islam, and during the years that the Imam is the leader. That's it. You know, um, it wasn't no board who decides um, about paying the Imam and restricting him. And I mean, I wasn't brought up in Islam that way. So and then you had to be and you had to pay a membership just to have a voice. Me being on the Salat line for Fajr and Isha didn't mean anything. You know. Um, so Masjid Tawheed was more, although culturally we had differences, but that was more in line on and that was the only thing left as far as a masjid. It was just Masjid Ibrahim or Tawheed. So I sat with Abdul Haq, Imam Abdul Haq, and asking about working with them. And he told me, well, it will be up to the community. They would have to discuss it. I don't know if he said vote on it. I don't know if he said discuss it and vote on it. So for 8 Jum'ah in a row, I went to Masjid Tawheed waiting for, thinking that, because most of the time, um, Friday is when you have your most people around. So most of the time after Juma, you know, we have quick meetings, letting people know things, and if it has to, something has to be decided, do it at that time. So for 8 weeks in a row, they never discussed it. It never was brought up. Um, I think a couple times I went to meetings that they had on different days, but like I said, um, I don't know if it was a class or Talim, something like that, but it never was brought up. So after 8 weeks, I said, well, I guess I pack up and and get on my horse and on my camel and ride on out. Um, so I was checking out Clewiston. This it was a it was an African descent brother that was murdered. That was from Clewiston in downtown Fort Myers. In fact, he was the only one I think was murdered during some type of shooting down there. And so we found out where this brother named, can't even think of his name now. He was from the Nation of Islam. Um, we had somehow we discussed it, and I never been to Clewiston, and he said he has. So we made a trip out to Clewiston, and we found out where the family of the young man that got murdered. We found, and we stopped and we talked to the grandmother, of the brother, um, and talked to her. We rode around Clewiston, small area. Um, Somehow I met a guy. Oh, you know what? I did know where Clewiston was because I have a cousin that lived on the East Coast, and we was going to her place, and we had to pass Clewiston. And I was with my family from Washington D.C. They was here. Um, yeah, they was here, and they was going to the East Coast to visit the rest of the family. So we was going with them, and my mother was there. It was my aunt, my uncle, my mother. I think my wife and I. And I think Cozell. Well, anyway, we stopped at a gas station in Clewiston, and I ran across a guy there, an African descent guy, and I just, I asked him, where's the black community, and he said it's called Harlem, and it was right near where we stopped at the gas station. He's telling me where it's at, and I was asking him about activities in the black community, what's going on, blah blah blah. So he gave me a little rundown, and he said he wanted to know, and I told him I was interested in checking Clewiston out. So he said if you do come back to Clewiston, remember he said his name is Alley Cat. Or Wildcat or some kind of cat. And he gave me his number, his name and his number, and said if I ever come through, give him a call. So now back to this murder, and the brother from the nation and I. So we came out. So when we got to Clewiston, I did call Alley Cat, and but at that particular time he wasn't in Clewiston. He was out of town. So we kind of rode around, and we saw where the hot spot was at. So where they just hang, So we got out the vehicle, and we just walked up into the into the drug crowd because that's where they was selling dope and stuff. So we went over there and started talking to him. And like we said, we was looking for the guy who was killed because we didn't have the address. We didn't know exactly where he lived. We just figured if we get the clues, then maybe someone would tell us. And that's what happened. We got on the drug area, and they told us. So we followed the instructions, and sure enough, we found the grandmother. And we introduced ourselves and talked to her for a while. Spent a little, like a half hour more there, and we told her we'll come back, inshallah. So by I don't know how I found out about the Muslim, that it was a Muslim, because I know I asked about Muslims. I know I had to. So somehow somebody told me about this guy, and I got the phone number, and I called this guy. Once I get back to Fort Myers, I called the guy up. But I really, from my understanding that he used to hold Jumu'ah. He had a little ranch or something, a little farm, and he was holding the Jumu'ah prayers there. But he moved to Texas or something like that. He still owned the property and everything. And then after that, I wasn't able to get a hold of him. I kept calling him, and he didn't answer. So I had an interest on that. If I can get a hold of this guy, maybe we can get something going there as far as Islam. Abdul Qadir. I knew him. He was living in Bradenton, and I had spent time with him. And in fact, I did 1 or 2 years. The last 10 days with him. And he wanted me to come up there and help establish something with the brothers of African descent in that area. And then this thing came up about Arcadia. So I ended up choosing to come to Arcadia.
What year was this? 2017.
If I'm here, yeah, it gotta be 17, 16, around there, or 15. Because all this was a lead up. And like I said, when I didn't get a reply back from Imam Abdul-Haq, either way, yay or nay, I just took it as a nay. And In fact, before I made my decision, I also talked to your father, and he had no comment either way. So, and that's what I was thinking about. 'Cause, your father, because he's more to me more, more compatible. Because he doesn't have that Nation of Islam history. I felt that we had more, in common. Because I know one time, um, iftar, I did at Tawheed, and sat around talking, and they was reminiscing about the Nation of Islam, and I don't have no, I don't have no history of that. I mean, my history of the Nation of Islam was negative because I used to get into debates with them, and they kept, their remarks were, oh, you believe in spookism, you know, um, and what is the spookism? Is you believe in the unseen. I said, have you read the Quran? In fact, I'm not saying read the whole book. Just read the beginning of the second chapter. And but no, they just kept on about y'all believe in that spookism stuff. Um, so I just felt that I had somebody to work with or lean on, with your father. But like I said, he never showed an interest. It's like whatever you want to do. I know it's what I want to do, but it's encouragement. Um, uh, I mean, if I'm going to be an annoyance to you, I don't want to do that either. Like I said, he never have a comment. He never has. I mean, he don't say nothing negative or positive. It's just whatever you want to do. So so I really had no hold because before Abdul Haq came back, the whole was Imam Jalil. And, I let him know that I'll support him. I'm not there to replace him. I wanted to know up front, I'm here to support your, imamship, Um, so I don't want nobody, like a threat, No, I'm supporting you. But then, like I said, a week before him and we talked and agreed that I was going to hook up with Master Tawheed. Because he even invited me. Well, first he really didn't invite me. He invited Elder Sani. And Elder Sani sent me down there. And then after that, he invited me one time, to give the khutbah. So, so like I said, I was, there to support him. And I guess in a nice way, they had their coup and had him removed. Like I said, and it was supposed to have been that following week. Because it was a Sunday. We supposed to have been meeting on a Sunday. No, we was going to meet that Friday. But the Sunday before that Friday, I guess they had their community meeting or something, and that's when they did the change. So that never took place. So after all that, I said, well, I might as well find where my next place to go, because I'm not a person that just want to sit down and do nothing, And I wasn't being that successful you know, in the black community there. I try to work with, I can't think of his name, the brother from the nation. You know, I said, well, maybe we can work together. You know, I know we got two different outlooks. You know, but I can handle that. I can handle it but he really didn't want that either. So, and then the other thing was, oh yeah, the other thing was because of Sister Catherine, because she was white. So he had a problem with that. So like I said, I really had nothing else to hold on to. And like I said, then I came up, heard about Arcadia, and I did that. And then I decided to move here. I told Abdul Qadir that I'll move here. And if this doesn't work out, come up to him. Which it wasn't working out because things kept dying until I'm like, like in no man's land. Why I'm still here and nobody else want to do anything. So I don't know. I don't know if I missed the whole point of the whole story. I don't know.
No, keep going.
Arcadia. I know they had here they had election. Because they was falling apart, so they had an election, and I got upset about the election because to me the election was a joke. Because a lot of brothers already advocated whatever positions they had, and they weren't doing anything. Muad'Din had turned the treasurer over to me without me officially being a treasurer. He just turned everything over to me. The only one you can say Brother Iqbal, he was president. He was coming. But other than that, the other people had positions. So I told him he needs to reorganize. So they had an election. And it just became a joke to me because all they did was argue, and here you got brothers arguing in their language, in the Bengali language. So I'm sitting here, like sitting on the banks, listening to the frogs croak. Don't know what the frogs are saying, but they just are croaking. You can hear them. So same thing. I don't know what they're saying, but they just arguing back and forth. And what I'm picking up later is that they telling one brother, you be president. He, no, I don't want to be president. You be president. Well, you be vice president. No, I don't want to be vice president. You let him be vice president. They just going all in circles and to make it easier for them. That's why they go into their language, because then they can fuss, more freely. You know, it's just like me learning Arabic and I'm fussing in Arabic and I'm just, and slowly,
Mhm.
you know. But since I'm tuned with English, I can fuss fast in English. So they fussing in their language where they can fuss fast, and furious. And brother Sadiq was there. So then finally they speak in English and they said, well, Sadiq, um, make him vice president. So the best Sadiq was nicely trying to tell them that, brothers, my masjid is Port Charlotte. I have a masjid in Jamaica. That's where my time and commitment's at. I'm just here to help you. No, they don't want to hear that. You vice president. You vice president. He's already letting them know he don't have time to be no vice president. So Iqbal don't want to be president, but he's president. Muhyiddin is vice president. He don't want to be vice president. Janal is vice president. He don't want to be vice president. And I found out later they didn't give anything to Salih Ahmed. They didn't even mention him. And even the last time before me, they never mentioned Salih Ahmed wasn't anything. So I don't know why he was always passed. I didn't, I'm thinking on this later. Why he, because I end up bringing him aboard as a signer on the checkbook because nobody wanted to do anything. And they did not even designate anyone to be treasurer. They designated me to be secretary. So I was just upset with the process that nobody wants to do anything. And you're forcing people to do something they don't want to do. And you know what that's going to turn out. Just like you see, everybody that had a position advocated the position by not doing anything and not showing up. So, Brother Nasser, he had start coming. So, I asked Iqbal about him, and he didn't have no problem. So I approached Brother Nasser, and sure, he didn't mind, but
Mind being vice president?
So, but he don't want to be a signer. He don't want to sign no documents. He don't want his name on anything. Blah 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 blah. Well, that's create a problem. All right, and that just reminds me, during this campaign, and I need you to find time when he's up in that store, see if you can talk to him.
Mm-hmm.
And encourage, because I know he's thoroughly disgusted with the Bengali brothers. That's why he left. Because he's the one who's donating, and they're not doing anything. And he just got thoroughly disgusted. They had Hafiz. I'm trying to tell Hafiz, this is the starting time. And this is the other thing. And Nasser's the vice president. And Nasser used to come to me and say, he used to come in here for prayer. And he's late. And the brother's just sitting there. So Nasser's questioning me, how come he's sitting there? I said, He's just waiting. You know, he waiting for people to come in. You know, and well, tell him don't wait. I said, NASA, I told the brother many times, don't wait, because you're letting these brothers rule you. And I'm saying that because if you say we're going to start at 1:30 and they don't come in until 1:45 and 2:10, he wants to wait. Since they don't come in until 1:45, he wants to sit there and wait till 1:45. Now, we say we're going to be done, say like in 45 minutes or 40 minutes. By you sitting there waiting for somebody to come in at quarter of, you're doing the lecture. And then now when everybody's in here by 12 o'clock, and because they know they can catch the salah anytime after 12 o'clock, they can catch it. They ain't worried about the vocal part or anything else. They just trying to catch the salah and leave right back out. So then we're finishing up 1:15, 20 after. Now NASA gets pissed. And that kept happening. And I'm saying, NASA, I tell the brother. I tell him so many times, especially since you just given a lecture. And I don't agree with the lecture part, but this is what they do. So I kept telling them, I said, well, I'm here. Lecture to me. Just lecture to me. So he started doing that. But then what he would do is 10:15, he will repeat the lecture. Yeah. So then he goes again, 1:15, 20 after, 25 after, and NASA gets pissed. So that's what I'm saying. If you go talk to him and really, by you being fluent in Arabic, you can just, y'all can kick it. And just let them know that it's a new day. It's a new day. The Qur'an is going to start on time and it's going to end in a certain time. It's not going to just linger, like he does. May Allah reward him. But I just kept telling them, that you're letting them control you, and you sit here and keep waiting. And then it got so bad that it would be just him and I. And here it is, 10:02. Just him and I. Just sitting there on the dock of the bay, waiting for the tide to roll in. Waiting for the people to come to prayer, And he's still complaining about more money. People ain't showing you asking for more money. Y'all. Yeah, so, just one day I want you to, especially with this campaign going on, because, like I said, they were good contributors, and every once in a while his relatives, they live in different cities, but when they come through the area, they come down, for the Juma prayer, also. Um, but all that stopped. Oh, okay. So I was talking about the foolishness, and my wife got upset with me saying, "Well, you came here to help. You didn't come in here to run anything." I said, "I agree. I came to help. But what is there to help if nobody's doing anything? So what is my job? To sit like they sit and do nothing? Nobody does anything? I have to step. Well, that's because you don't have to. No, I don't have to do nothing but stay black and die. Other than that, um, uh, if you want to say nothing else after that, then I know I won't make paradise. Um, I just can't sit here and watch nothing be done. I got to do something, and I did do things, and I had no title. All right, so it's not the title. I was still doing things, and that's why I told I add another descriptor to it: glorified errand boy. uh, um, in my way, I was doing my dawah, talking to people about Islam. People asking me, um, I'll talk to them. I'm just praying that this is a new day, that we will succeed, inshallah.
Yeah. We can end that there, I guess.